Everybody. We are going to get started. Just a quick reminder, this is being recorded and will be available. So if you've got friends or coworkers who aren't able to attend today, this will be available on the Avtex website in the webinars section there. There'll be some more information at the end of this slide deck on how you can find the recording afterwards. So this is the Avtex webinar series, and today we are talking about conversational UX, the why and how of chatbot design strategy. My name is Stu King. I am the Director of User Experience Design at Avtex. Avtex is a customer experience technology integrator. We work across lots of different platforms, and our objective is to make better customer experiences for our clients and allow them to service their customers better. We do that by kind of integrating all the different products we've got expertise in to create these unified experiences that make it a little bit easier to work with the companies that we service. So what we're talking about today is specifically chat. And we're going to be zeroing in on this idea of chatbot design strategy. Why are we talking about that today? Well, the reason that we are talking about this is that chatbots are becoming ever more popular. There are many companies that are using chat as a customer service tool, but as we get further along in advances when it comes to kind of chatbot-based AI, there's so much more that we can do to service our clients. The question then becomes, how does one go about designing a system to interact with your customers using a chatbot, where basically you have no graphical user interface? Of course, we have to do all the same kinds of planning that we would do for any technology implementation, but the question of how you implement UX in an environment like this is quite different. So I think to start with, we are going to cover some basic information. Obviously, it is the why and the how. So let's talk about the why. Why chat? There are many ways that chat can help a business. Some of these you probably already know about, and some of these are kind of emerging. But most importantly is this can serve as kind of a nice layer in between the customer service agent or a call center agent or a chat center agent, if you will, and take care of some of the more mundane things. So when we talk about things like a service go-between, we're talking about a chatbot AI that is smart enough to handle some of the basic things that just come up a lot. There are a lot of things that can be dealt with without direct interaction with a call center agent, for example. If you take these things off the plate, it becomes that much more easy to manage the workload of those who are actually chatting in person, for example. They can be used for e-commerce shopping assistance, helping people find the right products and services. Business process helpers. There are many industries where there are complex business processes for doing things like applying for insurance or financing or things like that. There are a lot of ways in which the chatbot does not necessarily replace the human interaction, but can augment the human interaction, for example, and help guide a person along a complex process to make sure they get to completion or conversion, whatever that is. Also, they can serve as kind of social media agents. So just another tool in a company's social media arsenal for reaching customers and getting out there and getting interactions with customers in new and interesting ways. And we will see that the importance of this is increasing significantly a little bit later on in this presentation. So the benefits of a chat strategy. All right, there's a lot of platforms, a lot of APIs that are available now, a lot of frameworks that a company can use to actually build a better chat experience. So, I mean, with a bit of effort, the days of sort of the hollow and impersonal chat interactions can be over. We can increase user engagement, and we can interact with users at all hours of the day. So even when we don't have actual people servicing our chat service online, we can still be answering questions, we can still be providing data, we can still be creating interactions for customers at all hours of the day. I think of it as The first time you pulled up to a gas station that was closed, but the pumps were still running and you paid at the pump and went about your business, right? That is a person, running a service station who is making money even when they're not there. And that is the kind of thing that you can do with the chatbot. Now, there are some correlations here as well to things like, the phone-based IVR systems and stuff that allow you to call in and kind of take care of simple tasks like transferring funds and getting balances and stuff like that just by, interacting with an IVR. This is kind of the same way, but what we would strive for here is something that feels a bit more personal. It's mobile ready and immediately available. So think about your typical mobile ready website. Um, that has to be constructed. It has to be built. All the front end code has to be standards compliant, and it has to be responsive. However, if you are building an experience inside an existing chat application that a lot of people are already using on their phones, the mobile ready part of it is taken care of for you, and you can focus on the actual interactions themselves and the data that you're pumping into the chatbot and providing customers. So it kind of takes that piece of it off the table and allows you to focus on some other things. It can certainly drive sales or drive conversions, depending on what it is that you're looking to do. Obviously, making a sale is a conversion, but there are other industries that think of conversions in different ways. Getting someone to sign up for a mailing list can be a conversion, right? So there are a lot of different ways in which a chat strategy can drive conversions by basically linking people out to different areas of the website or into web forms, presenting them with options inside the messaging interface that allow them to connect with other systems and processes, other places. All right, competitive advantage, driving sales. We talked about that a little bit, but gathering user preference data and promoting the brand without or before human intervention. So what I mean by that is it can provide this competitive advantage, and even if this is a customer who has a brief interaction, there's really no conversion point, there's no transfer of data. Even if you don't have somebody directly interacting with them, but they're interacting with the chatbot, you're still able to gather information about them that can help you understand your audience better, understand who's visiting your site, and you can continue to gather this data through the chatbot and understand who these customers are even during off hours, right? So even if a chat interaction doesn't lead to a sale, doesn't lead to any specific information being provided back to that person, even if it's abandoned, the session is abandoned, we're still gathering useful information, excuse me, about who this person is and when they were interacting with us and hopefully for what purpose. So we're gathering this live data at all times, which is kind of cool because that it means a constantly expanding understanding of who our audiences are, who those personas are. And it's cost effective. There are available platforms and APIs out there that can provide you with the infrastructure you need to get started. So this is not a build it from scratch, but the APIs that are available and the cognitive services that are available, the frameworks that are available, allow you to create some very feature-rich applications in this area without having to build things from scratch by simply connecting some things together and doing it with some forethought. So many, many advantages. So what else is compelling? Here's some compelling information for you. Facebook Messenger has over 900 million active monthly users, and Kik now boasts more than 200 million. Imagine that if you were to combine those two platforms and create for yourself some kind of custom chatbot, the audience that you have right from the start is kind of amazing. And these are just two of the available platforms out there that are really focused on messaging specifically. We also have some other things available to us in the form of cognitive services. There are several different providers. Microsoft is a good example with their Lewis platform. That's Microsoft Language Understanding Platform. What it does is it basically creates domains, and you can use this domain knowledge to kind of hook up to your chatbot platform so that your chatbot has built-in domain knowledge in a particular area. So if you happen to be opening a restaurant and you're going to create some kind of an AI chatbot that is going to manage things like reservations and menu options and different things like that, you can use something like a Lewis domain for the restaurant industry that will build in some language understanding for your chatbot so that when it sees certain terms, it can refer back to that domain knowledge and understand what those terms mean. And there are many, many pre-built and ready to go domain plugins basically available, and you can use the platform to create your own. So you can create your own specific set of domain knowledge if you have a very, work in a specialized industry or one isn't available. You can use the structure of the Lewis platform to create your own, which is pretty compelling. So the structure is there for you to build into. You don't have to build it from scratch. All right. I think this one is quite interesting. The fact that use of messaging platforms has now outstripped or exceeded people's use of social networking apps. And this is kind of amazing. Use of messenger applications exceeds the use of social media applications, and that is continuing to be the trend. So people understand the value of messaging platforms and how to use them, but there are multiple different ways to implement them. And I think in this case, what we're talking about is going beyond the typical kind of web-based customer service chat support that you would see on a website to something a bit richer. And people get it. People are starting to use these messaging apps more and more, and it's trending this way, and I think will continue into the future. So that's pretty compelling information, I think. It definitely makes a strong case for getting involved in chatbot technology. The problem is, how do we build something like this? We kind of understand the why, we can kind of see the value, but how do we get started? Conversational user experience is all about a design process that is really constructed to help you better define what you need in terms of a chatbot experience and define very specifically what your interactions are going to be like. Conversational user experience means a shift in design thinking. So what we're going to be doing is using a lot of the same design deliverables that we might in a typical user experience engagement that we might have around a website or a mobile application, for example. However, some of the deliverables will be slightly different, or they will be used for different things, or they will mean different things. The focus will be different. So design mockups, for example, in a typical user experience engagement are really about visual design. In this instance, think about a messaging app. We really don't have a UI. We're not really doing visual design in the typical sense where we've got a user interface. And a lot of times the complexity here is that with a website, we know people are looking at the website, and if we've got a new feature that we want to surface, we can make some kind of a new tab or a flashy graphic. Which percentage of the people, their eye will be drawn to that, they will see the new feature, and we will be able to expose them to something brand new. Well, how do you do that in an environment where people are working inside a text-based chat tool, right? How do we expose them to new features and services? Well, it becomes a little bit more tricky. So in this case, maybe we use design mockups with a client to sort of communicate a concept rather than a visual design. We have rather than design discussions that are all about logos and stuff like that, we're talking about different ways that we can surface information. How can we craft copy in very small chunks referred to as microcopy, in ways that feel like normal human interpersonal interactions? How can we humanize what we're doing? to make people feel like it's a personal experience as opposed to something being, feeling more robotic, I guess. That's the overall goal here. Conversational UX, the bottom line is it's about good storytelling. If you think about the interaction as a story where we are trying to get the customer, our protagonist, to an end goal, which is some kind of successful conversion, whether it be a sale or whether it be us being successful in providing them with the information they need. We want to think about that narrative. And quite often, a useful way to think about that narrative is think about the end goal and then work your way forward to say, what was the interaction that got us there? What was the right set of questions and answers that got us to our final successful outcome? So what are the things that we do, that we provide? What are the deliverables and how are they different than a normal UX engagement? Well, we still do personas because we still need to know who our audiences are and what is valuable to them. And the personas help us get to the heart of who our customers are. However, we introduced something new here called a conversation flow. And we're going to take a look at some of these examples of these deliverables here in a moment. The conversation flow looks an awful lot like a flow chart, but there's some interesting additional functionality in the way that we do a conversation flow that allows us to simulate a chat-based conversation between the bot and a customer. Microcopy documents. We will often put a reference or a code reference in the chat flow that links back to a microcopy document. And that microcopy is just a little 1 or 2 sentence blurb where we basically illustrate what the response would be to a particular question in craft, what that would look like, how it would be phrased. Because if you think about this environment, in a chat environment where we really don't have a user interface, we communicate our brand through language. And one of the things that this design, this conversational UX process is designed to do is help us determine what our brand attitude is going to be. And quite often that resides somewhere on a continuum between completely utilitarian on one end and very conversational on the other. So in some cases, you may have a chatbot experience that is very utilitarian, where it's all about, submitting part numbers or submitting order numbers and getting data back. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you may have an interaction that's very interpersonal, where the chatbot also almost feels like it has, a sassy kind of personality, and it's bantering back and forth with you in a very personal way, much like you would with friends or family. And so part of the key here is figuring out where your bot resides on that continuum, and understanding that that is the same as a brand discussion in many ways. So part of what we do is, as part of this process, is figure out where does our project reside on that continuum between utilitarian and impersonal. So we use simulations for rapid iteration, which are linked in with our conversation flow. And then, of course, it's about continuous testing. So hopefully we've got some people we can work with who can really help us understand whether or not we're hitting the mark, and we iterate as we go. So persona development, as I said, is quite a bit the same. We need to understand who these folks are and where the value is for them. However, empathy for users is even more critical when we're designing language-based interfaces. Personas provide all of this context around who this person is. And you can see in this example, we're even looking at things like sliding scales for things like, social savvy and tech savvy and optimism. Optimism being, how likely are they to give up on a process if it doesn't work for them the first time or the second time? Will they abandon it and go to something else? And that's important to understand in a situation where we're trying to reach people with a chatbot, and if they become frustrated with it, they might default to calling a call center or going to the website or abandoning that interaction completely and going to a competitor. So it's really important to understand this. And the persona helps us understand what kind of outcomes we're looking for these different groupings or segments of customers, and what their basic needs are so we can meet those needs. So in user-centered design, we start with the user. So quite often it's about the audience first. So we're looking at the persona development and we're working our way outward from there. Conversational UX and brand, we talked about this a little bit already. Chat changes that brand discussion, right? Because we really don't have a lot of UI. Now we can inject elements of UI into a chat process, but I think the goal is to make sure that we're using the right mix, that we're not just using the chat experience as a replacement for our website. So in this example, this is basically an artboard that is trying to communicate a concept. We start with a basic chat interaction, which can turn into a series of multiple choice options and then links off to areas of the website that are relevant, for example. That is one way that you can tackle a problem. But the basic idea here is that in conversational UX, we go away from communicating visual design through storyboards, and we use storyboards to talk more about concepts, high-level concepts about how we're going to present information. All right. And this is an example of conversation flow. Now, it looks like a big flow chart because it is, but it's not your typical flow chart. There's some interesting things going on here. Let's talk a little bit. Conversation flow provides a view into the entire experience. So this is important because it's allowing us to see a simulation of an interaction. So the customer says this, the bot says this, back and forth, back and forth. Now it also turns into kind of a great place for us to experiment with things like rerouting. For example, if we have a customer who just is being goofy and puts something nonsensical in there to try and challenge the chatbot, that's fine. How do we deal with that though, right? How do we respond to that? Rather than just saying, I don't understand or not responding, it would be interesting to have a clever and interesting way to kind of deal with those interactions and push the conversation back onto a course that the chatbot can deal with. The conversation flow is every bit as much about error handling and driving the message towards goals that are actually attainable as it is about just tracking a typical conversation through the system. It can identify problems. It can show us where we're missing data. It can show us where we don't have the things we need in order to complete a full interaction or to get to a conversion. It can show us areas where we maybe have redundancy that can be eliminated. And then in the context of a design meeting, which is where something like this would be presented and even prepared, it allows for very rapid iteration. So you can have a design meeting and sit down with the stakeholders and say, okay, here's a basic interaction. What do we think of this? Do we completely understand the problem? What do we see as areas in which a customer could potentially derail us? What do we need to be prepared for here? And this just simply allows for very rapid iteration and then also some early user testing. So this particular example, what we do is we're using a platform here that allows us to create a flowchart kind of simulation, but then we can actually build this and run it as a chatbot simulation, which is pretty cool stuff. So what are the design challenges that are unique to chat that make these deliverables so important? Discoverability. We've talked about this a bit, but revealing additional features to users without the benefit of a UI can be extremely challenging. People have a preconceived idea already about what a chatbot can and cannot do. And if they're thinking about what is the status of my order, they may think, oh, I'll go to the chatbot and I will ask, or I will go to chat and I will ask. I don't know if it's going to be a bot or a real person, but I would expect to be able to get order information back through an online chat engagement, right? And they may not necessarily think of going to something like chat for personal shopping assistance. However, if we offer that as a service, how do we inform people? How do we let them know that this is an option? Well, there's some interesting ways that we can do that. There are a lot of different strategies a person could employ to do that. Um, the the conversation flow is critical to helping us map that out. And how do we surface new things and let people know that, hey, there's more to this chatbot than a simple "what's the status of my order" kind of an interaction. Learnable experiences, providing suggestions early in the experience and gradually removing the training wheels uh, for further interactions. And this kind of plays into this discoverability idea. So we get them used to the idea of the basic interaction, but we keep building on that interaction. And we unlock achievements, rewarding users with more options and advanced tips based on their interaction history. So the more they get involved, the more they uncover, the more likely they are to continue to use it and continue to rely on it as their kind of go-to to interact with our business. And proactive suggestions. We can pull users into areas of the experience they may not have seen before and into areas of our website as well. So if you've captured a person's attention with a basic interaction like, "What's the status of my order?" You can also present them with other things, direct them to other services, direct them to other areas of your business through the website and other tools. All right, so in this case, what I'm talking about here is this idea of building up. And I touched on this, and we're going to go into it a bit more detail, this idea of building up. Starting with a basic interaction that someone would expect, and then working our way up towards something that will delight them. That is the idea. So here's our primary conversation flow. This is the basic interaction. This is what the customer expects. It's common. It's a simple interaction. It introduces users to the chat system, and it opens the door to new features. In this particular case, if we look at that bottom row, now I'm only showing a portion of it here, but I'm calling it the primary interaction. And that first box is where the customer is coming into the chat window and they're saying, "I need to find out the status of my order." We're fulfilling a need, and we're using this basic interaction to build confidence. When we're able to get their order number and provide them with data back along with the tracking number, successfully getting them the information they need, then we've built confidence. And at that point, at the end of that interaction, we can introduce a new idea to them, and we can say, "Hey, did you know that we have a secondary service? This is our secondary interaction. It has more complex features, but it's a proactive service offering where now we've gone from building confidence to building loyalty. It's an enhanced utility." And in the example I'm going to show you, this is where we're talking about, say, personal shopping services. So the primary interaction is about building confidence. The secondary interaction is about building customer loyalty. And the third interaction, or the tertiary conversation flow, is to add value and enhance or delight. And in my example that I'm going to be showing you here, I'm using the concept of a company that sells tennis gear online. So the first interaction would be, "Hey, I ordered a new duffel bag a week ago. I need to get order status. Where is it?" The second interaction, the secondary interaction, is where we're building loyalty and we're saying, "Hey, I need to buy a new tennis racket, but I'm not sure what I need." And we can use a chatbot to find out what they need and make proactive product recommendations based on that experience. And then the third is where we're providing value and we're delivering something through our chatbot that they never would have expected. In this case, it is using the chatbot to find a public tennis court or a tennis club near them where they can go play. And these, again, this is just kind of an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. So here's the primary interaction. What's the status of my order? The interaction it's simple, it's reactive. We're prompting the customer for an order number, and the chat bot is going to do a query on the back end and produce some tracking information. All right. And then at the end, we've fulfilled a need, we've built some confidence, and then at the end of that interaction, we're saying, hey, thank you for using chat today. Thank you for letting us know about your need and letting us help you. By the way, did you know that we also provide online personal shopping services through this? Please come back anytime you need help finding the right piece of gear. That's how we're surfacing new stuff. In light of the fact that we don't have a GUI, we can't do splashy ads, we use microcopy to do it. And we use microcopy at a point in the interaction when their needs have been fulfilled and they're very happy about that. So we're saying, glad I could help. Come back if you ever need help with anything else. In addition to order tracking, I also offer personal shopping services and can help you find the perfect gift for the people on your list. Have a great holiday, right? So then that takes us into the second interaction. So maybe this customer comes back in 4 weeks. They decide, hey, now I need a new tennis racket. This interaction is proactive now, right? We are going to sort of take the lead and we're going to help them find a product in our product catalog that best fits what their requirements are. So we can use a chatbot type of system in some clever ways to accomplish this task. And we can use domain knowledge, for example, from Lewis to either use some kind of sporting goods related domain knowledge or craft our own using the framework. So in this interaction, we're saying, the customer says, I need a new tennis racket. Okay, we have many brands and styles. What's wrong with your old racket? By asking what's wrong with your old racket, that is kind of a personalized, a more personal way of basically saying, why do you want to buy a new one? If we say, what's wrong with your old racket, the response we can get is either it's broken or it's too small or something like that. If they say it's too small, we know something right now. Okay, we know that we can start taking them down this path where we can discuss the size of the racket, right? If they said, hey, it's broken, then we can have a conversation about what do we need to replace. This is where microcopy, mapping out all of our microcopy becomes very important so that we can go down these various paths successfully depending on the things that we're hearing from the customer. So at this point, they're saying it's too small. And so we can say, what is the head size of your current racket? And we can provide some additional context. We can say the head of a tennis racket is the area where the strings are. Head size usually ranges from 80 to 130 square inches. And if you're not sure you can check out this video to learn more. So we can link them off to kind of an educational video on how to determine what their racket size is. But one of the things that we know from our domain knowledge is that typically a larger head size on a racket means that the person is a less experienced player. Now, by getting this information on what the head size is of their racket, we can start to divine some things here. At 110 inches, we already know that they're not going to be kind of a competitive level player. They're probably either a beginner or an intermediate level player with a head size like that. So we can ask this question, you know, would you consider yourself a beginner or an intermediate player? Okay, and so based on their answer, then we can provide them with a number of different options. If they had said they considered themselves a beginner, then we would probably provide them with immediately a product listing to say, you know, here's some rackets that might fit the bill. These are good ones for beginners. The head sizes range from, you know, 110 to 130, something like that. If they said intermediate, then we kind of have this idea that maybe they understand a little bit more about the sport, and we can ask them one more question to dig a little bit deeper. So in this case, my simulation is assuming that they answered they were an intermediate player. So we can ask them about their string pattern and say, do you prefer 16 by 19 or 18 by 20? And again, we can link them to information on our website or a video explaining why string pattern is important, right? But with that additional information, now we know what size racket they're looking for. We know they're an intermediate player. We know the string pattern they're looking for, which means we can narrow our product search even further. And rather than presenting them with 8 or 10 products, we can present them with 2. So we can say we have 4 models in the size you're looking for. We can provide them with links. And this is at the point at which they can go out and they can make these purchases, right? This is kind of a successful conclusion to the interaction. And now we surface more features and we say, thank you for letting us help you today. Come back if you ever need help with anything else. In addition to shopping services, we can also help you find tennis clubs in your area. Now we're getting into the third or the tertiary interaction where we're providing value and we're delighting the customer. We're surprising the customer by providing them with something they hadn't expected. So this is more of a casual interaction. So the interaction is elective, and the idea is, in surprising and delighting them, now they're going to come back to us for more than just products. They may buy a tennis racket once every 2 or 3 years, but they may look for a tennis court where they can play weekly. So these are the kinds of things where we can really make the most of this loyalty we already have to create a customer who's undyingly loyal and will come back to us for this service on a very, very regular basis. And then we're sure to have them as a future customer when they need gear, no matter what it is. So that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the end of the presentation. I hope that you found this useful and somewhat enlightening. I mean, it is a challenge doing design in this way for this kind of a product. It's very, very different than typical user experience design, even though the deliverables are quite the same. The challenge is figuring out how to get the right mix of products and interactions out there to build loyalty in a situation where you can't necessarily present them with all kinds of visually stunning things, right? It's really boiling things down to that personal interaction. And what conversational UX is designed to do is walk customers through that process. We sit down with them and really work them through the process using the conversation flow as kind of the basis for our structure, and look for ways that we can kind of build on kind of an entry level flow and build something that's expected into something that delights. So that is conversational user experience in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. I am more than happy to take some questions. Please understand, if you go to webinars.avtex.com, you're going to find all kinds of webinars out there that we've already done. You can also sign up there to get a message anytime we've got something new coming out. There's a number of great ones out there, some of them technical, some of them non-technical. We try to cover the gambit. So if you're interested at all in checking that out, please go to webinars.avtex.com. You can also reach out to us if you have any questions about chat, bots, UX, CX, anything else. Just send a message to contact@avtex.com. Thank you all very much today for your time and attention. I will talk to you later.